everyone, it's Siobhan again. I'm back to talk to you about your target area. A lot of people have asked me how I arrived at the decision to invest in Birmingham, and the answer is that a lot of money has been put into the building of the infrastructure in Birmingham. So obviously HS2 is going to be rolling through Birmingham. Athletes Village is going to be built. There's a lot of things that are happening in Birmingham, and it made sense to us. We knew ahead of time that these things were happening. You can find out all this type of information online, what is happening in the cities that you're thinking of. And obviously if there's a lot of developments and a lot of investment is being made into making it the, up and coming. I mean, Birmingham's a second city anyway, but if a lot of changes are coming to the city that's going to drive business to that city or to that town, wherever it is that you're targeting, that could be a good indication for you that properties will be on the rise. The other thing for us personally, why we decided to stay in Birmingham is one, because the numbers work and they're working really well. But very much in the beginning of when we started to invest, we had a project that was ongoing in Birmingham, but also we were looking up north, and there was a house that we were in the process of buying. That fell through anyway. The vendors decided to rent, but I go off on a tangent. The project in Birmingham, it was poorly managed by us. Yeah, I'm not going to blame the building. One thing that you will learn about me is that I don't point fingers. I don't like to blame or accuse anybody else of failings that essentially could be my fault. When a situation goes left, for me, I always look at myself and think, what could I have done differently in that situation? Because sometimes, had you known certain things when the event takes place, you could have been powered with that knowledge, and that could have influenced your actions or your thinking process, which could have then led to a different outcome. Or, if, for example, you've acted before actually thinking through logically and thinking about the facts of the matter, sometimes things go left, and it's because you're not armed with knowledge, or it's a lack of experience. And so this project in Birmingham, there's a lot of things that I for sure don't do now that I did then. And it got to the point with this particular project where I was traveling to this property on a daily basis, overseeing the work, coordinating I was basically the project manager, and that was not my role. The project manager was there, but I wasn't very clear with certain things, and I wasn't clued up with certain things, and so a lot of things just slided, it got slippery, it was just a mess. So ultimately, at that time, it was quite overwhelming, and I had a discussion with David, and we were just like, well, you know what, if this is happening in Birmingham, what would that be like in Hull? I was not in a position to travel to Hull 2, 3, 4 times a week. We have children, they're of school age as well, and it just wouldn't have worked. So because we didn't have the team in Hull that we now have in Birmingham, we didn't have the knowledge, we didn't have the expertise, we just said, okay, for now, let's just leave Hull where it is, because Birmingham actually does work. Let's stay in Birmingham, and then maybe we can revisit Hull at a later stage down the line. And so that's how we arrived in Birmingham. So I'm not saying do not go and invest in Hull or any other city. I personally believe you can find deals. No, it's a fact. Actually, it's not a belief, it's a fact. There are deals everywhere. So for those of you who believe you can't get deals down south because, you know, the house prices are too expensive, you're mistaken. Yes, they are generally higher, but you can get deals anywhere. It's all about knowing your numbers, which is something I'm going to go into on another video. But as long as you know your numbers, you know your budget, you're disciplined, you have the right team around you, you can get deals no matter where you are in the country. In fact, all over the world. It's it's possible to apply these principles no matter where you are in the world. It will work. So the other thing that you want to be aware of as well, if you're not already, is that every city sort of has different patterns and trends in terms of what the housing markets are doing. So generally the house prices go up, down, and you want to be buying properties not when they're at their peak, but obviously when you're traveling up the trend, because if you buy when they're at their peak, then the next thing is that they're going to dip. So you want to be buying properties when, you know, they've just dipped, basically is what I'm trying to say, when things have just dipped, and that's when you want to get in. That's your opportunity to snap the properties up, because going by history, you can tell potentially what these properties will be worth if you do your due diligence. So a good place to know more about the cities in that depth is to go onto the Home Track website. They've got some really good information on their website, and obviously just doing your own Google searches, just doing your own research, you can find out what areas are performing and what areas are not. The other thing that you might want to consider, especially maybe if you are someone who doesn't have a lot of time on their hands, it could be that you work so many hours, it could be that you've got young children and you're committed to maybe taking them to and from school and you don't have that support. So another thing that you might want to consider is the distance you are able to travel. So if you're able to travel like 2.5 hours there and 2.5 hours back, which potentially that's what would have happened if I was traveling to Hull. It's like 2.5 hours away from Birmingham one way. If you've got the capacity to do that, then that's fantastic for you. Obviously if you don't, then you need to look a bit closer. But like I said, don't let that put you off if you can't do that traveling, because you can get deals anywhere. And you can also tap into, if you really want to, and you ask the right questions, and you can identify a good sourcer who can give you that information as well. They can point you in the direction of properties as well. But again, you need to ask the right questions to make sure that sourcer is reputable first, and be sure basically that they've genuinely got a deal for you. I will also talk about more about that as well. So the final thing that you might want to consider in terms of what your target area is obviously your strategy, because I've touched on before, you know, people who want to buy houses won't necessarily want to buy in the same areas, which are areas that work for HMOs, for example. And so you really do need to consider what your strategy is, maintain what that strategy is, and be clear on exactly what type of house you're looking for that works with your strategy. And then also that will lead you to the area that works for your strategy and the area that has the types of houses that you're looking for. Be really disciplined when you identify what your strategy is and you know exactly what the type of houses. Don't get shiny penny syndrome. Don't try to deviate so much it's going to take you off point. So I think a lot of people make that mistake. Stick to the basics and you will succeed. Stick to your strategy, your intention, your targets, and you will succeed. But if you have physically written down your strategy and you know what it is that you should be going for, and then for whatever reason, it could be that, you know, someone else is doing something else, or you've heard about a different strategy which sounds so lucrative and so appealing, and it sounds easier. It may well be, but I guarantee the next strategy you hear about, that's going to sound appealing too, and before you know it, you're here, you're there, you're here, you're there, and nothing's getting done. So have a think about the target areas. Challenge for you today is to identify 10 areas that you want to have a look at, research them, go to Home Track, see what's happening with the markets in that area, have a look at what the house prices are, have a look at what the rents are in that area. Use Rightmove and Zoopla and Land Registry. Look at how much houses have sold for, and see whether you think that that area works for you. And I will be back tomorrow with another video. See you later, folks. Bye.